Hi, welcome to Survivor Talks. Happy Thursday, everyone. So, today is the season finale of season one. Whoop, whoop, we've made it to the end, and I am super excited to share with you this special episode of something I need to get off my chest. But first, before I get started, you know how I have to give the disclaimer. I want to tell you if you feel overwhelmed because some of these topics, most of them are triggering. They can be triggering to some people they're not. But if you feel triggered at any moment, take a break, step away, go get yourself a drink of water, take a walk, breathe, and if you want to come back, come back. If you can't, that is okay. All right, so I have some things that I need to get off my chest today. Yeah. And these things line up with the questions for Survivor Talks Q&A that I got. Okay. So I want to start with Survivor Talks Q&A. All right. So somebody asked me, where does trauma come from? So I'm going to answer that. Trauma can come from anybody. Okay. Your mama can cause you trauma, your daddy, your stepdaddy, your stepmother, your brother, your sister, the pastor, a minister, a teacher, anybody, okay? Even another child can cause trauma to another child, okay? Where does it come from? It's rooted in sin, okay? I'm gonna just put that out there. It's rooted with sin, okay? Because you're violating somebody. So that's where trauma comes from. Most of it, sexual trauma, crime, physical violence, those things are rooted in sin. Okay, like now your natural disasters, those come, okay? God will allow those things to happen. So you again, how you respond to that situation, it's your trauma is an emotional response, okay, to a terrible event. So maybe that's not rooted in sin, right? That is just a natural thing that happens. Trauma can also be generational, and we didn't really talk about that this season, but we will next season, season 2, when y'all tune in. But it can be generational, okay? Generational trauma is real. What does that look like? Just in a nutshell, maybe your great, 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 great grandmother was sexually abused. Then somebody else was sexually abused in a younger generation. And then the next generation, somebody was sexually abused by the same type of people, right? And it's just an ongoing thing, right? So there's so many different conversations that you can have about trauma. There's so many different questions asked about trauma. Okay. Um, the next question is, who does trauma affect? Well, it can affect anybody. Remember, it's an emotional response to something bad happening. It's how you respond. So it can affect anybody, and it affects people differently. Everybody doesn't respond to a traumatic situation the same. Okay. Lastly, the third question is the question that is actually going to lead us into our conversation for tonight. Me getting this thing up off my chest, the story that I have to tell you. Somebody asked, this question is actually from Angela. She said, how are you able to forgive the person who abused you? She said, I think this is great to discuss because God expects us to forgive in order to be forgiven. And that's a very important message. Well, yes, Angela, that is a very important message. The message of forgiveness. How was I able to forgive the person who abused me? Man, I thought I had forgiven the person that abused me. Mind you, I have experienced complex trauma, meaning I've had more than one trauma experience and different types of trauma growing up from childhood into my adulthood. So there was a lot of forgiving that was needed. My first type of trauma started in my household growing up, around my mother. The second type of trauma that I experienced growing up was with my stepfather, or my mom's ex-husband. The third type of trauma was very unhealthy relationships that I was in, and then domestic violence. Right, you see the cycle there. So there was a lot of forgiving of people that I needed to forgive. How was I able to forgive them? It was hard. I would say that. Even I would say that I would forgive a person, but I would struggle. Like, I didn't really know what forgiveness was. So people and I did too, tie forgiveness into forgetting, or they think just because you forgive that you're supposed to forget what happened to you. Now, while some people can eventually, over time, as they heal, forget certain details about what has happened, that still looks different with forgiveness. When you forgive somebody who has abused you, and not even abused you, but when you forgive somebody who has hurt you, right? It may not even be abuse. It could just somebody that hurt your feelings, a bully, right? Somebody called you a name. You hold on to that. We harbor these negative feelings, these negative emotions, and it causes bitterness in us, right? And we don't want that, because bitterness is like, it turns into a form of hatred. Okay. And we're not here to hate anybody. With forgiveness, so like with me, example, every time I would talk about uh my old stepdad, I would cry. I would get angry. I would get upset. Okay. I would feel guilt and shame for the sexual molestation that he did. And it would hurt me. And I would say, oh, I forgive you. But that wasn't really the case, because I was still getting upset. It wasn't until I actually got into therapy, and mind you, I've been in therapy for quite some time, right? Just going through therapy growing up. And you when you experience trauma, you may see different therapists. It was one in particular who asked me that question, do I forgive? And I was like, yeah, I forgive. Then she pulled out the feeling wheel, the chart. Okay. And she was like, when I think about such and such, how point to the feelings that I feel. So I was like, oh, I think about this. I was just went all around the chart. And she said, well, then have you truly forgiven? I was like, yeah, forgive. And that's when I learned that unforgiveness, you're harboring those negative emotions. And they were deeply rooted in my heart. So as I reflected on forgiveness, I had to ask myself a real question. Do I forgive my stepfather? And I had to give that to God. I was like, Lord, I need help forgiving my stepfather. Now, my stepfather's name is Darrell, okay? I am not afraid, and I've talked about this before, to throw out the perpetrator's name, okay? I wanted to wait until today to do it because of what I'm getting ready to do in a few minutes. But Darrell, he is the one who sexually molested me as a child. And I had to forgive him, but I didn't. I thought I did all this time. So as I was going through therapy, and I had to give these things to God. So I'm doing some practical work and then I'm doing some spiritual work at the same time, both needed together, okay? And I said, Lord, help me to forgive. Please help me. Because, like Angela said, it's great to discuss how God expects us to forgive in order to be forgiven. Yes, God says that. Forgive and I will forgive you. It's it's what he says, it's in his word, right? And I was like, well, I don't want to block my blessings. I don't want to be unforgiven. Can you imagine if you do something wrong? And yes, you do things wrong. I've done things wrong. We all do things that are wrong in our lives at some point in our lives, right? And we learn lessons from those experiences. I hope we learn lessons from those experiences. And I was like, okay, well, I want to be forgiven. I don't want to do something wrong and then God doesn't forgive me because I didn't forgive the person that hurt me. So I had to go back through the list. I had to forgive everybody, right? I also had to learn that just because we are supposed to forgive somebody, it doesn't necessarily mean the person that hurt you that you will be able to tell them that you forgive them. Okay. Sometimes you may never see that person again. That's just the way it is. You may or may not, right? And I want to share with you on that note the empty chair technique. So, as some of you may know, I'm a licensed therapist. Okay. It's where the Lord has brought me to. And we're not doing therapy right now, but I want to share this technique with you, and I'm going to do it here. Attempt to do it here, okay? The empty chair technique. So that is actually a therapeutic practice that therapists use. It's within Gestalt therapy. Okay. So what this looks like is a person dialogues with an absent person or a part of themselves. Okay. And it's represented by an empty chair. And that is what I'm going to do. So I do have a chair in front of me. Okay. And the purpose of the empty chair technique is to help externalize internal experiences. Now, a lot of people, they internalize the experiences that they go through. Okay. They hold things in. And it comes out in different ways, a lot of time unhealthy ways. But the purpose is to help externalize internal experiences and see things from a new angle. Okay. So if you've been in therapy before, your therapist may have done this with you if you needed to, get something off your chest. And you haven't had that chance to do that with somebody who has hurt you. Okay. And this also helps with closure. All right. So Why do I bring this up? I'm gonna tell you why. Part of that forgiveness, right? I used to always say that, oh, I need to go visit Darrell so I can tell him I forgive him. I was like, I forgive him, I forgive him, I forgive him. And I didn't fully forgive him. Maybe I forgave him for maybe one part or maybe this one thing, but I have to forgive him for everything. And I was like, I gotta tell him. And I may never see him again, right? So I wanna go back and I want to share something with you all. I remember I think it was around like 2018. I was in Maryland. Okay, I was in my house. This is the house I moved into when I got out of domestic violence, and I was able to speak to an attorney, and the attorney was helped me pull my case. Okay, my childhood abuse case, and for the first time as an adult, I seen the list of charges that Darrell had on his record, okay, for my case. It was about 6 or 7 different charges. It was extensive. And I cried. I felt so angry. I felt hurt almost all over again. I felt so many different emotions, but more so angry. And it's almost like it was fresh, like it just happened yesterday, right? I received new information, right? I already know that I experienced child molestation by Darrell. And when I seen the charges, it's almost like, man, I have something new to process. I'm angry all over again. So I had to learn to forgive him for that. I had to go through processing those feelings, those thoughts, right? Then not too long after that, with that after finding out the charges, I found out that Darrell was a pastor. A pastor. Now, mind you, in this part or this time in my life, I had just surrendered my life like to Christ. And when I mean like I already believed in God, but I mean I was surrendering to the point where, I was gonna follow the Lord. Okay. And the Lord was purging me, purging the junk out of me. He did a work in me, y'all. But I found out he was a pastor, and it hurt my family. It hurt me. I was like, the question was, how can one be a pastor and they haven't even apologized for what they have done? They haven't even asked for forgiveness. So that kind of ties into that question, who does trauma affect? I want to say this because that was one of the questions. Who does trauma affect? Trauma does not just affect the person experiencing a traumatic situation. Trauma affects the people that are attached to that person. So for me, that trauma that I experienced as a child, it affected my family. It affected my mother. It affected my brothers and my sister. It affected my aunts, right? It affected my family, to the people that were in my life. Okay. And when they found out that Darrell was a pastor, oh man, that was not sitting well with them. it didn't sit well with me. It's almost like, that anger was kindled all over again. And because I also had found out that because I was like, maybe I asked the attorney, I was like, maybe I could write a letter. And it was like, well, you can, but they can come after you. So I had to process that too. It's just so many different things. And I had to process this I processed it spiritually with God. I had so many questions. I felt like I was at a stuck place. Like, how am I supposed to move forward? Why can't I have a conversation? This man has hurt me and my family, and he's just going on with his little life like nothing happened, right? And I'm pretty sure if you experienced some trauma, you may have thought that justice has not been served, right? Do we really know that? So but see, God wants us to have these conversations. And these are the conversations I have with God. I'll ask. I'm like, Lord, I feel this way. I had to take all that information that I received, that Darrell was a pastor. Like, these thoughts started going through my mind, like, well, is he hurting the people at the church? All types of stuff. I got angry. Who are you to be a pastor and you molested a child? Emotions had to be processed from, who are you to be a pastor? You didn't even ask for forgiveness. You didn't even apologize. You couldn't say sorry. You didn't acknowledge what you did, right? All these emotions that can come from that. So I had to learn to forgive all of that. All of it. And I couldn't do it in my own strength. I had to ask God to help me. It was important for me to forgive all of that and forgive Darrell because I love joy. I love the joy that the Lord has given me. And if I hold on to unforgiveness, then I wouldn't have that joy. If I hold on to the unforgiveness, then I wouldn't have peace. But see, the Lord has given me peace and joy. I don't know what the Lord did over in his heart after the fact. I don't know. God knows though. And I had to find my peace in that. Last year was doing Survivor Talks Q&A, and I was sharing my journey about going through the process with the court system, with the legal system, with statute of limitations. Okay, so if you don't know what that is, it means it's a certain amount of time after sexual assault happens or crime happens that you have to report. Okay, for every state there's a different time frame for statute of limitation. And no, I am not an attorney, but I was a victim advocate, and these are the things that we would talk about, okay, with different lawyers and detectives and other people that worked with sexual assault, okay? So one of the things they would fight for is statute of limitations. And that's like an ongoing battle in the different states. And there's a question these feelings will come from like, well, who are you to tell me the legal system? Who are you to tell me when to report or when I can tell that I was sexually abused, right? So last year, I tried to pursue my case again as an adult. And it was too late. Okay. And I kind of stopped sharing my process because I needed to take the time to process everything. Okay. Everything. I went and read the entire records from the past, everything. And I was torn from everything that I read. And I just stopped talking about it. It's like, man, more new information coming, that I was like, man, I have to forgive Darrell for this. I have to forgive him for everything, all of it. Every little detail that would make me mad, that would annoy me, that would irritate me. I gotta forgive him for it. And I paused the fight. Okay. I paused the fight because there was some more healing that I had to do. Like I mentioned before, healing is a process. We want overnight healing, but sometimes that's just not the case. Healing could take years. It's like layers. It's like an onion. You got to pull back layers, and we heal that way. And that's my case. So I had to heal from more information, different things that was affecting me, that was bothering me, that was showing up in different ways in my life. So I paused that journey. I was like, I gotta fight. I gotta be able to use my voice. I gotta do this because he can't get away with this. And it comes back to that question. Well, how do I know he got away with it? Because I don't see him in jail, because he's pastoring a church. Again, I don't know what the Lord has done in his heart. It reminds me of Saul. And I actually just did a lesson on that. And it's so funny how I think about that now. Saul was killing Christians. And when Saul was headed to Damascus, God said, why are you, Saul, why are you killing people? Why have you forsaken me? And in that moment, Saul surrendered that fast. And I think about Darrell, and I'm like, who knows the encounter that he had with God? What if he had a same encounter? Apostle Paul or Saul went to Saul. He changed. He had a heart change, became Apostle Paul. He went to spread the gospel. And I'm like, man, well, God can do that. Whew. So much worse. Killing Christians, murdering people. God could do the same thing with Darrell. He could have. I don't know. Maybe not. It's not for me to always wonder and dwell on, because guess what? While he's living his life, I have my own life that I gotta live. So with that being said, I want to do this empty chair technique. And I've always asked myself, what would I say to Darrell if I did see him? And I always, I don't know. Then sometimes I'd be like, oh, I would say this. I would say this. I would say this. And I'm going to get this off my chest. Okay. So, Darrell, you hurt me in the past. You broke me in the past, tore my family apart. You tore my family apart. I heard it a whole lot for a very long time. A very long time. Almost died from different things. What you did to me hurt me. You took something special from me. You wounded my soul. And I was just a little girl. And you knew better. You knew better because you was the adult. And you were supposed to be my stepdad. You were supposed to be a father figure to me. I don't even want to ask you why you did it, although I questioned that for so many years. Because at this point, it doesn't matter. And I do want to say this. God has done a work in me. And although you hurt me, I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't change anything that I've been through because I am who I am today because of it. I'm strong. I'm resilient. I can love. I once hated, but I can love. I love me, but I once hated me, but I now love me. I love who God created me to be. I love the people around me. I deserve love. And I'm so thankful that God showed me what love is. He showed me what a healthy relationship looks like. And most importantly, he showed me what a father figure is supposed to do for their daughter. And I'm forever thankful to God for that. I choose to let go. Maybe not always forget, but let go the negative emotions, to let go of the bitterness that was attached to what you did to me. And I pray and hope that I was the only one. I pray and hope that your heart turned from what you did to me. I forgive you. Life is so much greater. I'm helping other people. Life is so much greater. And I'm not ashamed of what happened. I'm not ashamed to share it. I once was, but not anymore. Because I didn't do anything wrong. I was a little girl. And I can finally look myself in the mirror, look at in my own eyes, and not feel shame. Because God made me into who I am. And if I didn't go through what I went through, I wouldn't be able to help the others. So I choose peace. I choose the joy because these things were promised to me. Blessings to you. I forgive you. And that's how that goes. That's what I would say. That's what I have to say. I need to get that off my chest. I always wondered, but I never said it. And that's how the empty chair technique is. That's how it goes. I want to encourage you all. If somebody hurt you and you're never able to see that person again, maybe you don't want to see that person again. Maybe it's just too much to have that conversation. You don't have that opportunity. Don't internalize that experience that you had. Don't hold on to it. Talk about it. Say what you need to say as if that person was right in front of you. Because it's time for us, like Tavana says, it's best to let it go. Let it go. Forgive. Move on with your life into the life that God has for you. Because God has good for you. And that's all I got for you. I really want to thank you all for tuning in to season 1. I have so much in store for you for season 2. Season 2 will start March the 6th. Thank you all for tuning in. Take good care of yourselves. You owe it to yourself to do that, to love on yourself. Thank you all. Thank you all. I love y'all, and I will see y'all next time on Survivor Talks. Blessings.